start out on our mat in child's pose with the hands right next to the body and the elbows bent, the forehead resting on the mat. As you take an inhale, wave up through the spine, creating an arch in your back, then pressing into the mat and rounding through your spine, drawing your belly button back. We'll wave back and forth between those two movements, similar to a cat and cow movement with the spine. Using this movement to create balance in the front and the back of the body. Our practice today is about creating balance in places where a lot of times we'll find imbalance. On your next inhale, lift up onto the knees and sweep the arms up overhead for kneeling mountain. Arms come back by the sides, fold down into child's pose. And we'll start to move through a flow here. Inhale to kneeling mountain. Exhale into child's pose. Creating this alternating back bend, creating space in the front of the body. And then folding down into a forward bend, creating space in the back of the body. Out front, moving forward into table, tucking the toes underneath and rolling the hips back into downward facing dog. Taking some movements there, pedaling the feet, drawing the left leg and then the right leg underneath. You're crossing the legs and rolling through into a seated position. Setting the feet out front and then drawing the feet up off the mat, finding boat pose, Navasana. Creating space in between the toes and space in between the fingers. When we activate the hands and the feet, it gives us a lighter, more lifted pose. Then we start our exhale, roll the spine down, but keep the legs lifted. We'll straighten the feet right up toward the sky and open the arms up overhead. As you exhale, knees come into the chest, draw the forehead into the knees. Inhale, open the body out along the mat, full body stretch from the fingers to the toes. Knees come in, lift your head, scrunch into a little ball. Inhale, open, keeping the legs just slightly higher this time, like a low boat. Inhale, find that low boat. Exhale, knees to chest, draw in towards center. And then we'll set the legs in tabletop and start to roll up into boat. Use some control there to try to keep the legs as still as possible. Opening through the fingertips, opening through the toes, lifting from the lower back. As you take your exhale, let your feet come together into Baddha Konasana or bound angle, opening the knees out to the sides. And we'll fold over into a soft forward bend. Trying to lead yourself into that forward bend by moving your heart forward. Making sure that you don't collapse the space in the front of the body. We want to keep some room for our breath. Inhale, come back up into sitting, draw the knees together, come through your boat. Feeling lifted, and then maybe opening the arms out to the sides. See how that changes the pose. Drawing the arms in front again, keeping the legs still and rolling your spine down onto the mat. Once you find your way onto your back, press the feet up toward the sky, open the arms up overhead. And we'll fold the knees into the chest, lift the head, forehead to knees. Stretch the legs out, low boat. Exhale, knees into the chest. We'll alternate like that a few times. Inhale, lengthening the legs, stretching the arms overhead. Exhale, knees into the chest. You can move at the pace of your breath. We'll bring the legs into tabletop and start to roll ourselves back up into boat. Use that control with the abdominal muscles in the lower back to find the lift. Get right over the top of the pelvis. let the feet drop down, joining the soles of the feet into Baddha Konasana, or second Baddha Konasana. Moving forward from the heart again, making sure that you keep that space in the front of the body. Press the heart. It's nice to think about pressing the heart down toward the big toes. Taking your inhale, lifting up, and then bringing the hands behind your hips with the fingertips facing toward your hips. And the feet are hip distance apart. We'll start to lift the hips up off the mat into reverse table. You may want to keep your chin into your chest, or if it's comfortable for your neck, let your head drop back. But being sure that wherever your head is, there's no strain in your neck muscles. Let your hips lower down, stretch your legs out in front. Walk your hips back and move some of the flesh away from the bottom of the pelvis. Clear the sitting bones. Inhale, stretch the arms up overhead, and as you exhale, start to move forward, dropping the hands down on either side of the legs for a forward bend. And you can see, since it's early in my practice, I'm keeping my knees bent just to make sure that I'm not pulling on my lower back. If you tend to have tighter hamstrings, then starting with your knees bent is a really good option, a great way to keep your lower back safe. And you can still get a good, strong focus on opening your hamstrings. On your next inhale, come up into sitting. Bring the hands behind the hips again, fingertips facing towards you. And this time we're going to lift up into reverse plank, strengthening the muscles down the back of the body, finding some lift. And again, just like reverse table, find a spot that's comfortable for your neck. You might need to keep your chin tucked in so that you don't feel strain. We'll drop the hips down and then get ready to go into your second forward bend. Legs straight out. As you exhale, start to lengthen as you move out over your legs. And this time you might want to start with the knees slightly bent. Get your back into a position that feels good. Make sure you don't have too much pulling on the lower back or the SI joints. And then gradually, as you deepen the pose, you can start to lengthen through the legs and straighten the knees. Let that happen one breath at a time. Inhaling, releasing that forward bend, coming back up into sitting, sweeping the arms up, releasing them down. We'll cross the legs and roll right over onto hands and knees. Come into table. From your table, start to lift your head and your chest. Exhale, drop back into child's pose. So again, we're playing with that forward bend, back bend balance. Lifting into cow, tuck the tailbone underneath, roll back toward child's pose. Inhale, lifting toward cow. Exhale, tailbone tucks underneath, roll back into child's pose. Finding a pace that matches your breath. And here we can even play with our retention as you inhale. Give a little pause at the top. We curl our toes underneath, draw your hips up into downward facing dog, and we'll step the left leg very carefully up to the top of the mat. Setting up your high lunge, getting your ankle right underneath your knee. Stepping that foot back. And drawing your right leg up. Getting a nice high lunge on that side. Drawing your right leg back. So we just did a little alternating step up. And we're back over to the left side, stepping your left foot up. A lot of times this is one of the hardest transitions for people to do in yoga. So we want to get really good at stepping that foot up and getting it right where we want it in our lunge. Now we'll drop our back knee and take the arms up overhead, coming into Anjaneyasana, low lunge. Finding lift in the front of the body, slight back bend. Release the hands down. We'll frame the left foot. And start to lower yourself back into half split or half Hanumanasana. And you'll see I start to play a little bit with my back position, lifting my spine and then exhaling, dropping down into it. As you take your inhale, give yourself a slight pause at the top of your inhale. Feel that fullness as the lungs have all that air in them. It's a feeling of lightness and expansiveness. And then as you breathe out, feel that release, that creating space in the areas that are tight. As you inhale, shift your hips forward, come into your low lunge again. Sweep the arms up high, keeping the fingers wide. And if your neck is okay, lift your gaze. Releasing the arms down, and then we'll tuck the back toes underneath, scoot your knee away from you so that as you bend your knee, you're going to lift your foot up off the mat and you end up resting on the space just above your kneecap. You want to make sure you're not putting pressure directly onto your knee joint. Taking your right hand and sweeping it back, holding the big toe side of your foot so that your right thumb is facing up toward the ceiling. Gives you some more space in your chest when you hold the inner edge of your foot. With this sequence, since we're working on balancing, we have a few opportunities to open the quadriceps, the muscles in the front of the thigh. So in most yoga practices, we spend much more time working on the hamstrings, forward bending, creating space down the back of the leg, and that can create an imbalance if we don't do the front of the leg as well. Release your back foot, take your inhale, lift up into Anjane, and then let your hands release down, framing your left foot. Curl your back toes underneath. We'll step the left leg back into downward facing dog. Give a little bend and scoop the hips back. Pull some of the weight away from your hands by engaging your lower belly. Draw your right leg very carefully under the body and step it up so that your ankle is directly underneath your knee. Support your knee joint. We'll step that leg back, downward facing dog. Step your left leg up. So again, we're coming back to that little alternating step up, just getting comfortable with the transition into lunge and out of lunge. That can be a tricky one. We're back over to the right side. Step your right foot underneath and up to the top of the mat. This time we'll stay on this side. Release your left knee down. Take your inhale, arms sweep up. We're in Anjaneyasana on the second side. Exhale, release the arms down. Come down to frame your right foot. And we start to shift the hips back. We're moving into our half split or half Hanumanasana. Opening the hamstrings. And playing with the position of your spine, seeing if you can get a really nice opening down the back of the leg, but find some lift in your spine so that you're not collapsing the shoulders or the space around the heart. We can do that by trying to adjust the pelvis. You're trying to untuck your tailbone, like you're reaching it out behind you. You'll feel that give you a really nice focus in the back of the leg. Maybe taking a little pause at the top of your inhale And then we'll shift our hips forward, come back into Asana, bringing the arms up overhead. Front of the body lifts. On your exhale, let the hands drop down. And then we'll balance this sequence out by opening the front of the thigh. So we're actually moving to the back leg, to our left leg. And you're going to scoot your foot back and then start to bend your knee and lift your foot up off the mat. You end up with the pressure actually being above your knee joint. You don't want it directly on your kneecap. And taking your hand back, see what you can reach comfortably without wrenching your spine to the side. You want to make sure you keep your back pretty straight and your hips and your shoulders are still squared toward the front of the mat. You might be able to hold onto your heel or hold onto your toes. You're trying to hold the inner edge of your foot, the big toe side of your foot. Releasing your left foot, drop the toes down to the mat. On your inhale, bring the arms back up into Asana. As you exhale, hands drop down, frame your right leg. Lift your back knee and we'll step the right foot back carefully into downward facing dog. Drawing your left leg underneath the body, stepping it to the top of the mat. Taking a breath in your high lunge. Then we'll move into a pyramid stretch. Drawing the hips back, straightening through your left knee, and letting your body drop down over your left leg. Now, similar to the hamstring stretch that we did in our half split or half Hanumanasana, play with the position of your spine. Lift yourself up a few inches, drop yourself down a few inches. Find that perfect alignment with your spine where you get the most effective opening through your hamstrings. Then shift yourself forward, find your high lunge again. Left leg steps back into down dog. Go over to the right side. Right foot steps up. High lunge on the right. Start to shift your hips back and straighten your front knee. Come into that version of pyramid pose. Nice deep opening down the back line of your leg. When we're trying to get that good focus down the back of the leg, we're thinking about untucking the tailbone. You're trying to lift the tailbone to create more space through the hamstrings. Bending the front knee back into your high lunge, and then stepping your right leg back, finding your down dog, scooping the hips back to draw the weight away from the hands. Step the left leg up and back into a three-legged dog. Carefully draw the leg underneath the body and place the shin down onto the mat. So we're moving into pigeon. Taking some movements to settle the hips nice and low. As you inhale, lift through the spine. Find space in the front of your body. Your next exhale is going to help you move down, maybe onto the forearms. You could even use a block here. Or stretching your body all the way out onto your mat. Finding something that you can rest your head on so that your neck muscles have an opportunity to release. As you inhale, start to walk yourself up into pigeon. Now we'll take our stretch for the front of the thigh here. We want to follow the same principle that we did in our lunge. Walk your toes back so that the pressure ends up above your knee. Swing your right arm back to clasp the big toe side of your right foot, the inner edge of your foot. So you really want this to be about opening the front of the thigh, stretching out the quadriceps to create balance in the lower body and balance on the muscles that act on the pelvis, but also a nice little chest opening. Releasing the back foot, come back through center. We'll step the left leg through and into your three-legged dog and swinging it down to the mat. And we'll go over to the right side. Swing your right leg up, three-legged dog. Scoop it underneath, lift with your lower belly, and place your shin down and start to ground through the hips. Get nice and low into your pigeon. Taking an inhale, rolling that up the front of the body. A little hold at the top of your inhale. Feel that fullness in the lungs. As you exhale, we'll start to make movements down, either coming onto the forearms or walking yourself all the way out, resting your head on the floor. Taking your next inhale, starting to move your body up. Then we'll add our quadricep opening into our pigeon, finding some support in the front of the body. Reaching back and clasping the back foot if you can. And even if you can't clasp the foot, just holding your foot up in that shape is going to give you some space through the front of the thigh, so don't feel like you have to grab the foot. But if you can, bring your arm back, making sure that as you reach back, you keep your spine straight forward. You don't want to twist anywhere. And to deepen this opening, it's the opposite of how we did our hamstrings. So for hamstrings, we try to untuck the tailbone. For opening the quads, you're thinking about tucking your tailbone underneath, and that's going to intensify that stretch for you. Release your back foot. Tuck your toes underneath. We'll swing the right leg back. You can take it up into a three-legged dog and then bring it back down into downward facing dog. Scooping the hips back, giving yourself more space down the sides of the body. And as you exhale, let your knees drop down and bring your head down. Inhale, lifting the head, we'll move into our cat and cow variation here. Hands are planted on the mat as you inhale, create space in the front of the body. As you exhale, curl and round back, push the floor away. This is a great space to add a little hold at the top of your inhale as well. We'll exhale, drop down into child's pose. Coming back through our balancing movement of opening the front of the body and the back of the body. Moving through a kneeling mountain pose, sweeping the arms up, and even taking a slight back bend. Taking your exhale, bending the knees, fold down into child's pose. Inhale, lifting, finding the lightness as the front of the body fills with air. Drawing the hands into the heart this time and folding down, resting your hands right onto your hands. Thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.